I always say it early. I don't do sex before marriage. It rolls off my tongue like it's something I believe, like it's a principle, a conviction. But really, it's a shield. The kind that sounds strong enough to end a conversation without inviting the questions I don't want to answer. It's easier to let people think I'm just old-fashioned or religious. Let them nod politely and decide I'm too much work, or laugh, or raise an eyebrow and say, "Are you serious?" Some ask if I'm asexual. Some say it's internalized religion. Others just look at me like I've grown a second head. How do you even know you're a lesbian? That's not healthy. You should explore. What are you so afraid of? I never answer. Not really, because none of them are asking to understand. They're asking to disprove. I was raised Mormon in a 2-story house in Provo, Utah, where God watched everything, and silence was the language of love. We didn't talk about sex. We talked about purity. My mom bought me a promise ring when I turned 14. I wore it until I moved out. I think she hoped it would keep me safe. It didn't. Not from the things she feared. And definitely not from myself. When I came out at 23, I expected anger, or maybe pleading. What I got was worse. Silence. Distance, and a quiet understanding that I wasn't welcome anymore. I moved to Colorado a week later with 2 boxes, no plan, and just enough savings to rent a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like someone else's cigarettes. Since then, I've rebuilt a version of myself that keeps people at arm's length. I'm not cold. I smile, I laugh, I say the right things, but I don't let people in, not really, especially not in the ways that matter. I've been on dates, some decent, some awkward. There have been girls who made me nervous in a good way, who lingered when we hugged, who kissed me slowly like they were asking for something I couldn't give. And when it starts to go there, when hands start to drift or breathing shifts, I say the line, "I don't do sex before marriage." Most people take the hint. Some push. Some say they understand but start drifting anyway. Others laugh like it's a joke, like no one could possibly mean that. That's cute. But seriously, this is why you don't date church girls. You must have some kind of trauma. You know that, right? Maybe they're right, but I'm not about to hand that part of myself over for their inspection. None of them ever stay. Sometimes I wonder if I've made myself unlovable on purpose, a little fortress of morals to cover something messier, something I can't explain. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I let someone close enough to see the truth, not the purity mask, not the practiced smile, but the real reason I keep everyone out. And then I remember what that would mean, what that would expose. So I put the mask back on, smile a little softer, and wait for someone to come along who'll love me, just far enough away. That's when Tessa Blake came into the picture. It was a gray morning, the kind that looked colder than it was. I'd come to the laundromat early. Hoodie, no makeup, headphones in, just trying to get in and out before the regulars arrived. But she was already there. She sat near the back, one leg folded under her on the cracked plastic bench, sipping from a paper cup and scrolling through her phone like the place didn't smell like bleach and tired people. Her basket was at her feet, all black and gray clothes, a hoodie I swear I've seen on every gay woman since 2004. She didn't look up when I walked in. I loaded my clothes fast, reached for my wallet. Gone. Panic. Not the big kind, just the, seriously? Kind. I glanced at the clock. 16 minutes to walk back to my apartment, grab the wallet, and come back before someone took my machine. I looked over at her. Hey, would you mind keeping an eye on my stuff for a sec? I forgot my wallet. She glanced up. First eye contact. Need a quarter? She asked, reaching into her hoodie pocket without waiting. That's when I noticed her smile. It wasn't cheeky. It wasn't flirtatious. It was just warm, easy, like I hadn't interrupted her morning, just stepped into it. I smiled back, a little slower. No, I'm good, just forgot the whole thing. She nodded, fingers still wrapped around the coin. You sure? I got you. I'll be quick. Cool. I'll guard your underwear with my life. That made me laugh. Nervous, short. When I got back, she was still there, still scrolling, still that stupid hoodie. I loaded the rest of my stuff and sat 2 chairs down. You passed the loyalty test? I said. She looked up. Your laundry's still here. You're welcome. I nodded toward her basket. Your hoodie looks exactly like mine. She looked down. Oh my God, you're right. I leaned slightly. Are you sure it is yours? You're lucky I'm cute or I'd fight you for it. We both laughed. That was it. No thunderclap, no slow gamoose montage. Just a shared joke over a possibly stolen hoodie and a quarter she never gave me. But it was enough. That's how we became friends. If you could even call what came next friendship. After that morning, Tuesdays became ours. Not official, but not in any way we talked about. But it happened. The way soft things do. Quietly, without asking permission, she'd be there, or I would. One of us would pretend to act surprised, but we weren't. Not anymore. Sometimes she brought pastries. Sometimes she brought questions. Do you believe in fate? If you had to wear one color for the rest of your life, what would it be? Why do you fold your towels like that? 3 weeks in, she invited me over to hers. Small place, a guest house behind a bigger home, dim lighting, books in stacks, a plant that had clearly been watered too much. Make yourself uncomfortable, she said the first night, grinning as she tossed me a soda. I came back the next week, and the week after, and then we just stopped pretending it was casual. Even after 3 months, we weren't labeling anything. We hadn't talked about feelings, not once. But I could feel them. In the way she handed me the remote. In how she'd start movies only after I sat down. In the way she didn't fill silence with noise. Just let me exist next to her, quietly unraveling. One night we were on her couch, the lights low, and she asked, So, what kind of movies do you love? I tilted my head. You first. She grinned. Old movies. The older the better. I blinked. Like what? Ashley Tisdale, Zac Efron old? She laughed so hard she nearly dropped her tea. No, I mean actual old. I love psychological thrillers, like Psycho, the 1961, Hitchcock. I stared. She made me watch it the next day. I squinted at her. You enjoy that? A shower murder? She shrugged. It's the unraveling, the tension, the madness underneath the ordinary. I love watching people fall apart quietly. I stared a second longer and muttered, Noted. Then she asked, What about you? Lesbian films, I said, deadpan. She laughed, not in a mocking way, just amused. Of course you do. I like the indie ones, long glances, emotional tension, where nothing really happens except everything. I shrugged. You know what I mean. She gave me that amused look. I can't watch those, they feel so idealized, like no one in real life acts like that. I grinned. And Psycho is your idea of realism? That earned me a faceful of popcorn. Hey! I shrieked. You started it, she said, giggling, reaching for more. We were watching one of my favorites, The Handmaiden. The kiss scene had just started, soft, desperate, hungry. I could feel her beside me. Close, too close. And then I felt her hand, fingertips brushing against my thigh. Slow, testing. Just under my skirt. I stopped breathing. She leaned over, warm breath grazing my cheek, and kissed me, and God. I let her, mouth open, nerves on fire, desire crawling up my spine in dizzy waves. She pulled back just slightly, lips barely apart from mine. "I've wanted to do that since the laundromat," she whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was still trying to remember how lungs worked. Her fingers slipped to the top button of my blouse. She looked at me, actually looked. "Is this okay?" I nodded. Maybe too quickly, maybe not at all. She kissed me again, slower this time, tasting me like she planned to memorize it. By the time I was bare to my torso, her eyes had gone dark. She just stared, quiet, needing. "You're so fucking beautiful," she breathed, and I swore I felt it between my ribs. Her hands slid up, reverent. Mouth followed. We melted into the couch, into each other, and just when her fingers began to dip lower, searching, I grabbed her wrist. "Wait." She stopped, breath shaky, face flushed. "Why not?" I shook my head, voice cracking. "I can't." Tessa stayed there. "What do you think I do for a living?" I sighed long. My heart pounded. Tessa stayed there, quiet, close, breathing as hard as I was. She didn't push, didn't pull away either, just waited. Her forehead pressed against mine, and in that silence I hated how much I wanted her, and how terrified I was of what might happen if I spent the night. The next morning, I expected silence, maybe space, distance, a cool shift in her tone when I texted, but Tessa was still Tessa. She replied with the same softness as always, still sent memes, still asked if I'd eaten, still said sleep well with that little moon emoji she overused. If she was waiting for me to explain, she didn't show it. If she was upset, I couldn't find it in her words, and somehow that made it worse. I carried the weight of it in my chest. The night before, how far we went, the way her breath had trembled when I stopped her. I kept replaying her eyes, her hand, the silence I left behind when I said I can't. I braced for her to retreat, to stop texting, to stop asking if I was free, to pull back and say, "I'm not doing this with someone who can't even tell me why," but she didn't. She stayed, warm, present, constant, which only made the guilt sharper. That weekend, she suggested a picnic. "Just us," she said. "Warm sun, a bag of chips, and judging people's fashion choices as they walk by." I smiled through the phone, already imagining it. She picked the spot, a sloping hill in City Park, near the lake. Ducks in the distance, families with kites. A couple on rollerblades who looked way too confident. Tessa spread out a soft blue blanket, unpacked strawberries, sparkling water, cheddar popcorn, and sour gummy worms. She even brought those little napkins with sunflowers on them. We lay back beside each other, arms brushing occasionally. Her hand grazed mine once, casually, and I flinched before I could stop myself. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She was the one who broke the silence. "Are you mad at me?" I blinked. "What?" "No." She smiled, a little crooked. "Good. Because I'm kind of mad at you." My breath caught. There it was. She sighed. I didn't know what to do after that night. You said stop, so I stopped. But part of me kept thinking, was it me? Was it something I did wrong? I sat up a little, suddenly too warm under the sun. No. God, no. You were perfect. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. She nodded slowly, eyes scanning the trees like they had answers. I thought maybe you were on your period, she said softly, or just nervous. I laughed, short and awkward. No, I wasn't on my period. Her eyes flicked to mine. For a second, something changed in her face. But then she smiled again, small, forgiving. Got it, she said, brushing a crumb off her shirt. Let's just enjoy the warm sun, honey pie. I laughed. Honey pie? Who says that? I smiled despite myself and lay back again. The warmth felt good, real, like nothing had happened, like we could go back to being simple. And then I felt it. A drop. Then another. I blinked at the sky, the clouds moving in like they had their own agenda. Tessa sat up first, pulled the snacks together quickly, and looked at me over her shoulder with that wry grin. Yup, looks like picnic's over. The RTD was late, and the rain had turned into a full-on downpour. I shivered next to her on the plastic seat, trying not to laugh at how soaked my shoes were. By the time we got to her place, everything clung to us. Jeans, hair, breath. We were drenched and laughing, brushing past each other in the narrow entryway as we peeled off coats and shoes. Her cheeks were flushed. Mine too, probably. It's late, I said, trying to sound like I wasn't already breathless. Tessa turned, eyebrows raised. You're kidding, right? I blinked. She nodded toward the window, where the rain still beat down like a tantrum. We could run a hot bath or something. You can't possibly head home in that. The thought of bathing made my skin crawl. Not because of her, but because of what it might lead to, what she might see, what I might not be able to hide. But I nodded anyway. Okay, thanks. I expected her to say, we could share it, felt a rush of something I didn't want to name. Hope? Longing? But she just smirked and grabbed a towel. Relax, she said, voice light. I'm not going to try anything. Last time was enough of a rejection. I'd rather protect my pride, thanks. Her joke stung harder than it should have. My heart thudded, loud and guilty. I didn't answer, just nodded again and disappeared into the bathroom. The hot water was heaven. I stayed longer than I meant to, washing away the cold, the tension, the ache in my chest, but not the guilt. When I came out, wrapped in just the towel she'd handed me, the apartment was quiet except for the low murmur of CNN. She sat curled on the couch, back turned, focused on the screen. I hesitated, standing behind her, watching her. Tessa, I said softly. She turned, slowly. Her eyes widened the second she saw me. Still damp, skin flushed, towel clutched loosely at my chest. She opened her mouth, probably to crack another joke, but I let the towel fall. Her breath caught. I saw her eyes darken, hesitation and hunger crashing into each other like thunderclouds. Her jaw clenched. She didn't say anything. I want you to have me, I whispered. She stood in an instant, hands trembling as she stepped toward me. Her voice was barely a breath. Oh God, Aubrey, don't mess with my head, please. I can't not have you. I pressed into her, desperate. Then take me. She kissed me like she'd been starving for years, like she'd held back every night and now couldn't anymore. Her hands traced fire along my waist, then my back, pulling me closer. I gasped, arching into her, heart hammering. We stumbled backward toward the bedroom, still kissing, still breathing each other in like oxygen. She laid me down so gently it made my chest ache. But just before she went further, she paused, eyes burning. "Are you sure?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked. And for once, I didn't feel like running. I nodded, because even if my fears hadn't left me, right now, my need for her was louder. And maybe, for once, that was enough. My fears were realized, though. She had woken up first, and by the time I stirred, I saw her backed away from me, sitting on the edge of the bed with her back tense and bare. "Is that why?" she asked softly, realizing I was awake. I sat up slowly, heart sinking. "Yes," I replied, voice low, ashamed. "How long?" "Since I was little. Never really stopped. I've sought medical and psychological help. Nothing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Aubrey." "I'll take the sheets to the laundromat," I said, getting out of bed and grabbing at the soiled linens like they were evidence. She didn't say anything, and I didn't know what I was hoping for. For her to hug me and say it didn't matter, that we could work through my bedwetting together, that it wasn't a huge turn-off to everything we had shared the previous night. Yeah, right. Those were my thoughts, until that evening, when I had just finished eating and was curled up on the couch in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, when I heard the knock. When I opened the door, there she was. Tessa. Still in the same jeans, still in that faded green sweater she always wore when she was nervous. Her hair was messier than usual. Her eyes were soft. She didn't say anything right away, just stared at me. Then she stepped forward and pulled me into the tightest hug I'd ever known. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything this morning," she said against my ear. "I was just stunned, not because I was grossed out or whatever you might think, but because I didn't realize how much pain you'd been carrying." I swallowed hard. My hands trembled where they gripped her back. "I'm here because I love you," she whispered. I pulled back just enough to look her in the eye. "You what?" "I love you. And I don't care what your body does in the middle of the night. You've seen how much I snore, right?" She smiled through the tears. "That's probably more unbearable." I laughed. It broke through the last wall inside me. She cupped my face and kissed me. Slow, deep, sure. Every touch said, "You're safe." Every kiss said, "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in years, I believed it. Because maybe love isn't about perfect timing or perfect bodies. Maybe it's about being brave enough to let someone love you, even after the worst parts of you have been seen. Maybe it's about waking up to find them still there, and knowing they chose to stay.
If you enjoyed this story and want more, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who would love it, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, make sure you're subscribed with post notifications turned on so you never miss an upload. Till next time, bye.